Hi, my name's John and welcome to my Metro 6R4 project, which is a Porsche Boxster chassis with a Metro shell slab on top. On this episode, the Kevlar inner wheel arch liners have arrived, so we're going to try and fit those. And then later on in the episode, what I really want to try and do is get a coat of primer in this, so hopefully by the end of the episode it's going to look very different. Well, there might be a few of you here because of the Mercedes 190 episode, but this is a project we've been working on a while now, and we're not getting on too badly with it. But certainly if you want to go back and look at some of the earlier episodes, you'll be able to see how we've got this far, but the Mercedes will be back in the next episode. So it's essentially, as I say, a Porsche Boxster chassis. We've cut the top off it, set a Metro shell on top, and set about fitting it with a Metro 6R4 body kit. And the reason for this is that I want to try and build a car that looks like a Group B rally car, but drives a lot nicer on the road and is suitable to use a lot more often. Okay, so the only thing I've really changed since the last episode is I've cut a slice here and I've widened the bonnet out because the gap was too big. Now certainly we'll get on to fitting these inner wheel arch liners later, but I really want to try and button up a few issues on the bodywork here so we're more or less ready to move on to the primer stage. So the only issue I've really got left here is that this gap here is much too big at the top and much too narrow at the bottom, and there's a really easy way to fix this. Well, there's certainly enough room for adjustment here, so you would think you could get it in a position that you'd be happy enough with it, but once you add the wing to it, it really only wants to sit in one position, and that is kind of like that, so it's sitting crooked. So I think what I need to do is try and fill this gap here. So what I've done here is I've taken this off and I've rubbed it down this side and also in this side, and I'm going to mask it up on the bumper down here and down here, and then I'll bolt this back into position, okay, just like I've done already on this side. And I'm going to mix up some fiberglass and push it into this gap and also on this gap on this side. I'm going to let it dry and then unbolt this, and because it won't stick to the tape, I'll be able to pull this off, and that's going to leave me with the perfect gap on either side of this. So that's going to tackle that problem, and I'm going to work my way around this car and pretty much finish off all the bodywork on it so that you don't have to watch it all, and then I'll bring you back in and we'll talk about how we're going to move on to the next step. I didn't really film very much of the bodywork. The reason being is I've done a piece on it in an earlier video, and a lot of people don't consider bodywork that interesting. Now, I do quite a lot of it in my daily job, and it doesn't actually bother me. I quite like it actually, but I suppose that helps. But I pretty much got it where I need it, I think. So I've got this gap all sorted out, although it's hard to see because of the different colours going on. I've got this gap sorted out between the bumper and the wing. I've got this line sharpened up here. I've got the waviness sorted out of the bumper here. I've skim coated essentially the whole bonnet here. Now I haven't got very much in this, as you can see by the amount of gel coat showing through. All these gaps are pretty good. Now this door is just sitting on there. And I've got this gap all sorted out down here and all down here, and this is all level and this is level that way. So I would say, as far as Metro 6R4s go, this is probably pretty decent because they weren't known for their fit and finish whenever they're made new. Now, I would say that probably most people have difficulty getting a car from this stage to the primer, okay? And I would say that's where they have the issue. The reason being is that while it's really straight and looks pretty close, there's a number of small defects of it. It's got small bits where I've pulled the eyes upon and I've missed a bit. There's pinholes in it, and it's got a lot of 80 grit satin scratches, and those are too rough to prime over with regular 2K primer. Okay, so you would show through whenever you painted the car. So basically I think what people would do is come back in here and fill some of them defects and try and sand it flat, but they end up sanding so much of the filler around their new filler that the panel ends up wavy, or else they sand so much out of it to try and get the sand scratches out of it, again they make it wavy. So basically what we need to do is try and put something very thin over this to bridge the gap between where it is now and where it needs to be. So what I'm going to use is a product like this, okay? So this is a spray filler, and it's not to be confused with primer. It's definitely not primer. It is made of polyester, so it's the same material as the filler, right? And I'm probably going to put about 3 coats of this on, okay? That should be enough build so I can sand it straight and then remove the rubbing lines out of it. Now what I will need to do is to try and refine this slightly, so I'll probably need to give it a very quick rub with 180, but I won't worry about taking every single sand scratch out of it. And you do need to read the technical data sheet on this product because it's very, very susceptible to moisture. So you need to know what the humidity is when you spray it, and also it can't get wet afterwards. And I'm going to use a spray gun like this, which is basically the cheapest one that I could find, which has a 2.5 nozzle, okay? Because see if this dries in this spray gun, you'll have to throw this out, so it's no point buying an expensive one. So we'll get a couple of coats on this here and we'll see how it looks. Well, you can see now it's all one colour. It's starting to look pretty decent, so I am pretty happy here. Now, I didn't use the product I've shown you before. I got some of this Noval for Classic Cars range, and I must say it went on a lot easier, and it's got a lot finer finish than the other product that I'd used, so I'm pretty happy that I got this. Now, there are some issues here, and I'm going to need to address them before I move on any further. So what I've done here is I've give the panels a very quick go with a black aerosol, and I've given it a very quick initial cut with 120 paper, okay? And you can see here where it's darker. This is a low spot, and feeling it, it's just too low. I don't think there's going to be enough product here and here to be able to sand this out. So I need to make a decision now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some finishing glaze over this section here, okay? And hopefully there's enough material here that'll be able to sand it all flat and not have to reapply the spray filler. You can do that, but obviously I would like to avoid that. So here's now here, which was exactly the same, and I've done just that. So that is now fixed, and that is going to work out just fine. There's also some bits where there was pinholes, like here and here. So what I've done is I ground them out with this little die grinder bit, and then I put some of this finishing glaze in it, so that's going to solve them. So moving on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to block it all down with this block here, which is, I've got 120 grit paper on it, and it's basically a number plate cut in half and stuck together, so there's 2 pieces there. And I've made a handle out of duct tape, and it's got a bit of rubber hose for like garden hose, and that's acting as the handle here, okay? And the reason why I use this here is because it's hard. It is, well, it's flexible for a start, but it's also hard, so it's going to give you a nice sharp cut. A sand block like this, see where it's got foam in it? That's going to go in and out of the hollows, so it's not going to show them up as well as what this would, but I'll use this here for finishing off. So basically what I need to do now is go around the whole car, do it with 120 and then back around it again with 240, and hopefully that should be it ready for a coat of primer. Well, that is ideal bodywork weather, so it's very hot and it's also very dry, so all the products that I'm using are drying quick, and I also don't have to worry about any of these spray fillers picking up any moisture, which is a good thing. So I started at the front. I've got it pretty much sorted out there in 120, and I've moved on to the back here. So there is a bit of an issue here. I did have a bit of a low spot here, okay? Now there was originally in this panel and I got it straightened out, but I think there was a little bit more in it. Either that, or because these panels were stored off the car in my parents' house for a good few months, that they might have twisted slightly out of shape and this might have came back in it again. Either way, it is fixed now. So as I've sanded it down, I've rubbed through the spray filler and I've exposed this regular filler underneath. Now what I'm going to do here, there's so much rub through here that I'm going to give it another coat below this line of spray filler and block it again, and that should be it fixed. Okay, now I probably could go over this with regular primer, okay, but because this is very lightweight, I would say that the primer would probably sink into this more than it would into this spray filler, and it might give me a little bit of an outline. Although to combat that, in areas where I've got this here going on, which is really always going to sort of happen as you try and rub this down, I'm going to use an epoxy primer, and hopefully that should prevent that happening. Well, after days and days and days of sanding, I'm finally ready to put a coat primer on this. So it's looking pretty decent. I'm pretty happy with it, but there definitely is some areas here where there's filler exposed and gel coat and things like that. So the issue would be here, if I went to put a coat of regular 2K acrylic primer on this, it might soak into some of these filler areas more than the surrounding spray filler, which wouldn't really be a big deal because you could block sand it before you went for your final paint, okay? But what you might find is that it would maybe sink later on after it's been painted a while. It depends how good your acrylic primer is. The issue with the acrylic primer is that it is porous, and this is porous. So if it was to sit around for a while, it would probably pick up moisture. At least that is the thought, okay? Now with steel panels it would be different, because what I would be doing is putting, there probably would be areas of steel exposed here, and so what you'd be doing is you'd put an epoxy isolator primer on it, okay, and that would seal off all of this here from moisture, and then you'd put your acrylic primer over the top of it, and then before I would paint it, I would be able to bake the acrylic primer to make sure there's no moisture in it before the final paint. So that's a process that I've used, and it's been pretty successful. So the problem with this here is, because this is fiberglass, as was seen in an earlier video, I was able to heat these and manipulate these panels into the shape that I want. So I think that if I was to have to bake these, what would happen is they probably would warp out of shape, and since I've spent so much time on that, I really don't want to risk that. So I really need to find a way to do this without having to bake this. So because it's been dry and I've had these sitting outside in the sun, pretty sure there's no moisture in them, so I'm happy to move forward with this. But what I've bought for this is a hybrid epoxy primer. So this is a newer product from Novol, and this actually replaces their acrylic primer. They don't seem to make any acrylic primer anymore. This seems to be the way things are going. I've never tried this before, but I would rather try it on my own car, and at least then I'm going to know how it works before I do it, put it on any customer's car. But basically this, with the hybrid filler hardener, this replaces the acrylic primer that they would have had before, and it is non-porous. So I think you mix this 3-to-1 or something like that there, and it has a sufficient build that you can block it down and get it ready for painting. So this would be it finished, okay? But because there's various areas there where there's filler exposed, what I'm going to do is mix it with this, which is the isolator hardener, okay? So you mix this 1-to-1 like this. This is a very, very thin isolator primer. I'm going to put one coat of it on, let it sit for probably about half an hour, 45 minutes. That should hopefully give it a skin, okay? And then I'm going to mix it with this high build, and this is going to get it ready for, it's going to give it sufficient build that I can then block it down and get it ready for paint, and that'll be it done. So we'll see how this works out. Well, what's the verdict? So yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. It's came out pretty good. Everything looks nice and straight, as you can see from the reflection. And Nothing has sank in anywhere, which is good. So I'll be pretty happy with it all. It all looks nice. Some problems I did find was I did find it a little bit more difficult to spray than a regular acrylic primer, and I think possibly the problem here was that it was a little bit warm and very dry. Okay, so the tech data sheet says it should be a minimum of 15 degrees and around 80% humidity, and it was 60% humidity and 22 degrees. So I think it was probably drying nearly as quick as I could get it on. And another issue I found was that some of the panels that I painted first, like this one, has overspray on it from some of the ones that I painted at the end. These ones here I painted at the end, these are smooth, these no overspray on it, and you wouldn't get that with an acrylic primer, but it doesn't really matter because you're going to be sanding it down anyway. But I'm pretty happy with it. From what I can see, I'll have to see how it dries or cures fully. It is dry, but it could dry a little bit more. I'll have to see how it sands as well, but from what I can see, I'm pretty happy with it. Now, I would say, having watched the videos, these walls are filthy, but they're certainly clean enough to do this job for primer in here. But whenever it comes to painting it, we're going to have to make it a lot cleaner than this and repaint them all. One thing I like to do is to keep the little pucks of paint that come out of the mixing cups, especially if you're using a new product. It just means you can keep an eye on how they're curing and how they're doing over time. Not that it's really the same as having it on a car because it's so much thicker, but it is useful for telling you something. So this is the polyester spray filler product that you would have seen earlier in the video, and it is absolutely as hard to brick. Okay, and if you put it into the mixing cup, it is the full size of it. Okay, and it has shrank very, very, very little. And this is basically about as hard as these products go, and this is the reason why they are good for sorting out your bodywork and as a basis for your primer and paint to go on top. Okay, this here is a 4:1 acrylic primer. In fact, it's actually the Novol 4:1 acrylic primer that I'm pretty sure they've done away with. Now, I've used this before, obviously, since I have this here, and I would have said this was a fantastic product. It went very, very hard, and I would consider it to be perfect for putting paint over. The only thing is, I've seen today here that when you put it in a mixing cup, it has shrank. I know, see how much it has shrank over time. Okay, so I think the issue here is obviously because it's so thick, it has shrank inwards like that, whereas on a car it would shrink downwards, and because it's so thick, it has taken ages to shrink. But on a car, it's obviously going to shrink a lot quicker, and it's not really a concern as long as it shrinks. It does any shrinking before you sand it and paint it. Okay, but this is sort of an argument for why your acrylic primers are not really suitable for filling anything, only the very most minute of things. Okay, this here is the epoxy primer that I've put on the car, and as you can see, it's started to pull away from the side a little bit, and even the tech data sheet does say that in thicker layers it does take longer to cure, so I'm not particularly concerned about this, but I'm going to keep an eye on it and see how it does. I can see on the car that it's pretty much went completely hard, so I'm pretty happy with it. I think this is a perfect product to have used on this, so it's starting to look pretty good here. I am really very happy with it. I'll give you a look down the side here. Now the box is just sitting here. But yeah, you see the reflection, it's really nice and straight, so this is probably about as good as I'm going to get it. So now on to the next issue. So I need to try and sort out these wheel arch liners, and this here is the outside where it would meet the bumper, and if you measure them across their width, they are, I think it's something like 20 inches wide or something like that. If you come to the car, let's see, we only have 17 inches. So I'm going to need to trim them down, and I'm also going to need to trim this bumper down here. Now I do have a picture of an original car that I took, and so I've got an idea of how thick this should be, but I think how I'm going to tackle this is I'm going to take the wings off it, take the bumper off it, bolt the two together, and then try and fit those inside here. Okay, and once I've got that sorted out, I'm going to fit these back onto the car and then try and trim those wheel arch liners to fit into the car. I'll have to say these are very typical of anything Metro 6R4 that I've seen, because at the start I thought they weren't hardly going to fit at all, but with a bit of heating and manipulating, a bit of cutting and grinding, they're pretty much in. So they're probably not the worst fit. They're certainly good enough for where they are, but they do need pulled in place and a lot of screws and stuff to hold them, but they'll be fairly happy. So I think what I'm going to need to do now is take them apart, take all this apart, build it back on the car, and then try and cut these down and try and get them into the car, okay, which I think is going to be a challenge. You can see here there's a cutout, and this is actually for the headlight. So what I'm going to need to do is trim away the headlight panel. I did know I was going to have to do that, but I wasn't able to cut it until I had these. And you'll also notice that these rear part of the inner arches are absolutely massive. They're obviously far too big, and these have been made for a space framed car, but I do have a set of the original sized ones. Okay, so what I'm going to do is fit these, and there's obviously going to be a gap that I need to fill, so I'll hopefully be able to measure what distance I'm going to need here, and then transfer it to these larger ones and cut these hopefully perfect. Every time I go to do a job in this, I realise there's something else I need to do first. So I thought I'm going to have to fit this filler neck once and for all, and I cut through it and then realised that this was inside it. And so this is obviously how the tank vents the air off. I thought one of the other pipes coming out of the side of it was probably for that, but this apparently is how they do it. So I'm going to need something like this back in again, so that the air comes back up this bit of hose. So what I've done here is I've taken this was actually like this length here, and was down in there, so I pulled this out, cut that off it, trimmed that down to it's small enough, trim the metal bit, flap away, and now this fits inside there. Let's see, it does fit inside here at some point. It's making a liar out of me. Go in. Right, so it goes in like so, and then this bit goes in like that. So it's still got the little flap in it. So hopefully whenever you turn up the fill up, you'll be able to flip this in and still be able to fill it, and hopefully it'll let the air back out. But I'm going to need to get a new one of these pipes since I cut it in half. Well, this filler neck in. Now I've obviously used the original part of the filler neck that goes into the tank that was off the boxster, and this is the new piece that I've added in. And I've just cable tied it on for the time being because I've no duplicate clips the right size, but it does look pretty sensible, so I'm pretty happy with it. Now it does smell very, very much of fuel in here, which does concern me slightly, especially since I do a bit of cutting and grinding, but I think it's coming out of these pipes that go to this carbon box. So I think probably what I'm going to do is drain this tank again just to be on the safe side. But yeah, this is the wheel arch liner in here, so it does look pretty decent, but as you can see there is a big gap here. I would really need something more to go in here. So I think what I'm going to do here is get a bit of cardboard and set it on top of this and try and push it in here and try and mark out the shape that it needs to be, okay? And then I'll be able to transfer that on to the other piece, which is larger. I think this bit here is going to be too complicated, so I'm going to try and get a piece out of the original Porsche Boxster wheel arch liner, the black plastic one, and try and set that in first over the top of this, and then hopefully this bit here will join in with it. Well, that's one part down and 3 to go. So it's came in quite decent. I think once the wheel's on, it'll look quite good. The only problem is I had to make a relief cut on it here, so I'll have to grind this back and make a repair on it. But I do have a little bit of Kevlar, so it'll be just fine, and then I'll fill over it and you'll never see it. And this is the piece of plastic wheel arch liner from the Porsche that's covering the fuel hose. So I think that's all going to work out okay, especially once this is painted white and this is painted white, and this will be a nice cleaned up black piece, so it should look quite good. So now I need to worry about the front piece, okay, and I'm certainly going to have to trim a little bit of this away. How much is going to have to go, I don't know. I'll just have to see how it goes. And then I think the next thing I'm going to have to do is to try and put this wheel arch liner in, and the only thing I can really think to do is to measure it from here into here, and basically then mark it from here to here, and then leave myself maybe an inch extra, and just keep trying it and grind a bit out of it until it goes in, and basically that's the plan here, and hopefully I don't cut too much out of it. Well, there you go. It did take some pushing and shoving to get that in there, but I think it does look pretty good. And it's not a bad fit. I certainly don't think anyone would look at it and say it's not meant to be there. And it's even a nice fit down here underneath where it meets in with the bumper. So yeah, I'd be pretty happy with it. And I think once this is all painted white in here and the wheel arches are painted white, the same as what they are in a genuine car, and the struts replaced or refurbished, and the brake calipers painted, I think this will look pretty sharp. And this is the piece that I cut out of the headlight panel. And once I got this out, I folded the edge of the steel that was left to put a bit more strength back into it. I still need to make some alterations to this though, because I need to route the water pipes through here somewhere, and so I need to make some sort of cutout in this, but have to figure that out later on. And I do need to add some fixings the whole way around it, but I think it's pretty much near there. Just the other one to do now. Well, congratulations if you've made it this part of the video. You win absolutely nothing, but what you do get is a walk around video. So I'd imagine this hasn't been the most interesting or exciting of videos that I've made in this car, but that's the way it goes sometimes. Some days it's interesting and some days it's not, but all the jobs need done regardless, so you just need to get at it. But it's starting to look pretty good here. I do particularly like how that filler cap has came out. You know, it does look like it's meant to be there. Obviously it's normally meant to be in the quarter panel here, somewhere about there. And all the panel gaps come in quite nicely, so I'd be pretty happy with it. It is probably about one of the longest videos I've had to make on it, I would say. Probably of about maybe 10 days of labour in this, but it doesn't really matter when you're doing it for yourself, I suppose. These door boxes are just sitting there. But I would say the next item on the agenda is going to have to be the roll cage. And I've got that video probably about 75% done. So if you want to see that, you can subscribe and come back and watch it. Or if you have a comment to make, you can leave one of those. And if you like the video, go ahead and like it. See you later.